Okay, so namaste and Dandavat Pranam to everyone. We are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam this morning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, who is the serving director of the Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute. We do this reading 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, East Coast time in the US. And we are also remembering one of the gurus of Madhava Puri Maharaj, whose name is Srila Prabhupada, who is the devotee, the very exalted devotee who wrote the um, commentary of this book we're reading, Bhagavatam, and he also translated it, which was a huge endeavor because this is a very vast Sanskrit literature. Sanskrit is the ancient language of India. And this was a huge undertaking that Srila Prabhupada did at the tail end of his life here on Earth. He was able to translate 10 out of the 12 cantos. Cantos is a massive book in itself, and there's 12 of them altogether. So we've been doing this reading for many years now at this time, and at this point, we just started the 5th canto a few days ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. Um, So before we move on to continuing our reading, we also like to make one prayer to Srimati Radharani, whose her special day, Radhastami, was just here on Sunday. Every time we read Bhagavatam, we pray to Srimati Radharani because one of our gurus has told us that unless we can understand something about Srimati Radharani within our reading of Bhagavatam. Unless we can understand something about her, then our study has been for waste. So we always keep this in mind. And it's a little more uh, difficult than one might expect because her name is not explicitly mentioned anywhere in all 12 cantos of Bhagavatam. So it's not so straightforward how we can learn something about Radharani in Bhagavatam, but nonetheless, we have been given some hints and instructions from our spiritual masters on how to do so. So with this in mind, we are praying to Srimati Radharani before we begin. Yadi seva vanchitasya ma yasya kripaya vayam labima sarvam prapnuma prayojanam Dhamni Shri Bhagavat Pade Krishna Sambandhi Sarvam Cha Yadina Jani Mahe Tutam Ashtadashasu Sahasreshu Shlokanam Bhagavat Otishu Radharanimna Vindamatada Nishphalam Bhagavat Adhyayanam Radhikaya Kripam Vina Vyartasyat Sarva Parishrama. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Srimati Radharani, all of our efforts are in vain. So we are now moving forward to our reading today. I'll share the screen. We're continuing from Canto 5, The Creative Impetus, Chapter 1, The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. And if throughout our reading today, if any questions or comments come up, we'll have some time to address them and discuss them at the end. So we're continuing from text 22 right now. Manorapi Pare naivam pratisandita manor attaha surarshi varanumaten atmajam akila dhara mandala stiti guptaya astapyasvayam ati vishama vishaya visha jalashayasya upara rama. Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous poisonous ocean of material desires. Purport. Swayambhuva Manu. So the translation is a direct translation of the Sanskrit that we just read, and then the purport is the commentary by Srila Prabhupada, further explaining the significance of the verse. So, purport. Swayambhuva Manu was practically hopeless because such a great personality as Narada was instructing his son Priyavrata not to accept household life. Now he was very pleased that Lord Brahma had interfered by inducing his son to accept the responsibility for ruling the government of the universe. From Bhagavad Gita, we get information that Vaivasvata Manu was the son of the sun god, and that his son, Mahārāja Ikshvaku, ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhuva Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe, and he entrusted to his son, Mahārāja Priyavrata, the responsibility for maintaining and protecting all planetary systems. Dharamandala means planet. This Earth, for instance, is called Dharamandala. Akila, however, means all or universal. It is therefore difficult to understand where Mahārāja Priyavrata was situated, but from this literature, his position certainly appears greater than that of Vaishvata Manu, Vaishvasvata Manu, for he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Another significant statement is that Swayambhuva Manu took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary systems of the universe. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge of the government, and they engage their men in canvassing from door to get votes to win the post of president or a similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father Swayambhuva Manu felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Thus it is evident that the kings and executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings, who were known as Raja Rishis, ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. The history of Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu describes how exemplary, responsible monarchs performed the duties of government with disinterest, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. Material affairs have herein been compared to an ocean of poison. They have been described in a similar way by Srila Narottam Das Thakur in one of his songs. Samsara Vishanale Divanishi Hiyajvale Judatana Tanu Upaya. My heart is always burning in the fire of material existence, and I have made no provisions for getting out of it. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana Ratina Janmila Kinetaya. The only remedy is Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. How unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this. Manu wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore when his son Priyavrata took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. That is the system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. The word Surarshi Vara Anu Matena is also significant. Manu entrusted the government to his son with the permission of the great Saint Narada. This is particularly mentioned because although Narada wanted Priyavrata to become free from all material affairs, when Priyavrata took charge of the universe by the request of Lord Brahma and Manu, Narada was also very pleased. Text 23. Iti havavasya jagati patir ishvare chaya dini veshita karmadi karo kila jagad banda dvamsana paranubhavasya Bhagavata adi purushasyanagri yugala navarata tyananu bhavena parir andita kashaya shayo vadatopi mana vardhanu mahatam mahitalam anushas shasa. Translation. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrata fully engaged in worldly affairs. Yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrata Maharaj was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Purport. The words Manavardhano Mahatam, just to show honor to superiors, are very significant. Although Maharaj Priyavrata was already a liberated person and had no attraction for material things, he engaged himself fully in governmental affairs just to show respect to Lord Brahma. Arjuna had also acted in the same way. Arjuna had no desire to participate in political affairs or the fighting at Kurukshetra, but when ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord Krishna, he executed those duties very nicely. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord is certainly above all the contamination of the material world. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam api sarvesham Bhargatena tarataman Shradhavan bhajate yomam Same yuktatamo mata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Maharaj Priyavrata, therefore, was a liberated person and was among the highest of yogis. Yet superficially he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahma. Showing respect to his superior in this way was another of his extraordinary qualifications. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.17.28, Narayana parasarve nakutas bibhyati Swarga Pabharga Narkeshva Api Tulyartha Darshina. A devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavrata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does a Mahabhagavat who has nothing to do with the material world come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. Text 24. Atacha duhitataram prajapatir vishvakarmana upayeme varhismatim namatasyamuha bhava atmajam atmasamana Shilaguna karma rupa viryo dharandasa bhavyam babhuva kanyam chayavi yasim urjasvatim nama. Thereafter, Maharaj Priyavrata married Varhismati, the daughter of the Prajapati named Vishvakarma. In her he begot 10 sons equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter, the youngest of all, named Urjasvati. Purport. Maharaj Priyavrata not only carried out the order of Lord Brahma by accepting the duties of government, but also married Barhismati, the daughter of Vishvakarma, one of the Prajapatis. Since Maharaj Priyavrata was fully trained in transcendental knowledge, he could have returned home and conducted the business of government as a brahmachari. Instead, however, when he returned to household life, he accepted a wife also. The principle is that when one becomes a grihastha, he must live perfectly in that order, which means he must live peacefully with a wife and children. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first wife died, his mother requested him to marry for a second time. He was 20 years old and was going to take sannyas at the age of 24, yet by the request of his mother, he married. As long as I am in household life, he told his mother, I must have a wife, for household life does not mean staying in a house. Real household life means living in a house with a wife. 3 words in this verse are very significant. Uhavava. These words are used to express wonder. Priyavrata Maharaj had taken a vow of renunciation, but accepting a wife and begetting children have nothing to do with the path of renunciation. These are activities on the path of enjoyment. It was a source of great wonder, therefore, that Priyavrata Maharaj, who had followed the path of renunciation, had now accepted the path of enjoyment. Sometimes we are criticized because although I am a sannyasi, I have taken part in the marriage ceremonies of my disciples. It must be explained, however, that since we have started a Krishna conscious society, and since a human society must also have ideal marriages, to correctly establish an ideal society, we must take part in marrying some of its members, although we have taken to the path of renunciation. This may be astonishing to persons who are not very interested in establishing Daiva Varnashram, the transcendental system of 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, wanted to re-establish Daiva Varnashram. In Daiva Varnashram, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma, one's qualities and work. It is this Daiva Varnashram that should be established all over the world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but is one of the functions of a Krishna conscious society. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 25 on Friday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Dev, Srila Acharya Dev Ki Jai.
jai,
Jai Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai.
jai,
All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai.
jai,
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki
jai,
Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev
jai,
Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Ganga
jai,
Mai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki
jai,
Jai. Giri
jai,
Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund,
jai,
Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi
jai,
Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai
jai,
Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai, Scientific
jai,
Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai, Srimad
jai,
Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai
jai,
Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya
jai,
Saraswati Mat Ki Jai, Nitai
jai.
Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Hari
Hari
Bol,
Hari Bol.
Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai,
जय गुरुदेव
Hare Krishna.
श्रीपाद कृष्ण केशव प्रभु जी की जय
So before we close, if there's any comments or questions or any discussion, we have time for that. This the purports in Bhagavatam, they're explaining a perspective from a culture that many of us in the West are not accustomed to. So a lot of it can sound very foreign and, you know, hard to relate to. Um, but it's very interesting once you become more immersed in that culture. It's a spiritual culture for spiritual development. So the purports are all aimed at connecting the verses to that spiritual culture and explaining it in that context. Um, and the more we hear about these things, the more they become familiar and the easier they are to try to think about. So we pray that whoever hears this is benefited, um, and we're happy to continue to meet with anyone interested in listening to these things and considering what they might mean and how it might relate to their life. And it's always very nice to do these things together. So I appreciate everyone's association here today. I appreciate Isabella. Thank you for coming. And yes, I look forward to meeting again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. I do have a quick question, if that's okay.
Definitely.
Um, so when you're talking about the path of renunciation and the path of enjoyment, so the path of renunciation would be not marrying, and dedicating life to Krishna consciousness or God, or right, a spiritual, fully spiritual, dedicating yourself fully spiritually to that, um, versus a path where you might marry and have a family. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So both
If we have time.
we do,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah. Uma Devi, is it okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, I am happy to hear.
Okay. So both in family life and in the path of renunciation, we have the opportunity to fully engage in Krishna consciousness in both areas. But progress is slower, let's say in family life, because naturally family life, um, first of all, includes sense enjoyment, where, obviously, the husband and wife are engaged in a sexual way with each other. There's a focus on sense enjoyment in that way, a focus on raising the family, um, which takes time away from the internal spiritual development. But hopefully, you can raise the children in in a Krishna conscious way. So the parents are also being benefited by trying to teach the things to the kids. They're also remembering them themselves and reinforcing the lessons themselves. The path of renunciation means that, so this word Daiva Von Ashram was mentioned a couple of times in this last purport. So Von Ashram is basically the social political order of the Vedic civilization. Um, it's separated into four divisions of a social order and four divisions of an individual person's life. The four social divisions are based on the nature of the work and qualities of an individual. Um, some individuals are very much inclined to thinking about the truth and meditating on that in a very high way, in a very perhaps intellectual way. That's called Brahmin. That's like the highest class of society who is meditating on that truth and is able to teach it to others. Then the social order below them are called Kshatriyas, or the warriors, or the governmental leaders, or the police, let's say. Not necessarily police, but like a law enforcement, where they listen to the Brahmins who are situated in the truth, and they're able to help the other more simple classes of people to follow those principles, then the next order is called the Vaishyas, who are like mercantile. They're very good at selling goods and trading goods that the higher two orders rely on. Each of these orders are interconnected and they rely on each other in different ways. Then the lower class is considered Sudra, and they're more agriculturally oriented. They're not so good at selling and trading, but they're good at producing the raw goods. They're not so good at managing the affairs of society like the law enforcement class, but nonetheless, they're providing the food stuff and the material for the clothing that those people rely on. So in that way, there's a social order. And then the four divisions of the individual's life is considered first Brahmana, which is like a student life, is considered the first 25 years of the life where they study. Then the next 25 years, they can either continue that Brahmana life and stay abstinent. They call that Nastika Brahmachari. Or they can, if they have a propensity where they're more inclined to enjoy the senses, but they still want to move in a spiritual direction, but they have to just do it in a way that isn't so strict. Then they take to family life for the next 25 years where they have children and they get married. And then for the person who took to family life, the next 25 years after that is called retired life, or what is it? After Grihastha comes the
Vanaprastha.
Vanaprastha, where basically in retired life, the kids are growing up, so the husband and wife have no need to focus all their energy on the kids. They can both focus on their spiritual development of life. They're no longer practicing, like conjugal activities, but rather they're just staying together to support each other in spiritual development, and they go on pilgrimages to the holy places. And then finally, for the last 25 years of life, typically in the Vedic culture, then the husband might take the completely renounced order, which is called sannyas, where he, moves away from the family completely and also the wife. But it's done it's like it's done ideally in a supportive way. It's not something which is tearing a family apart. It's everyone is understanding that we're all trying to develop spiritually together, and hopefully it's done in that kind of mood. And the wife can also go to some ashrams. They have ladies' ashrams, or she can also move back with the family and help the kids, move in a spiritual direction as adults and help them to raise their families in a spiritual way. So that's like the social uh, order that the Vedas try to give to help individuals move through spiritual advancement, whether they're oriented towards renunciation from the start or if they have to take the family route. But both are supposed to, our gurus, Srila Prabhupada, in the modern day, have encouraged both family oriented people and people who are more renunciation oriented. Both can make progress. Um, is that helpful, Isabella?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Definitely. Did you have any other questions?
Just if would that be an understanding from the beginning from the wife, for example, that she would know that this is the path that they're entering, and that after those 25 years there would be um, a deeper exploration and then the moving away, and possibly for her too, as well? Is that something that's sort of, I mean, I'm just curious as to how that process works, if that's agreed upon ahead of time.
As I understand it, ideally that's the case. but I would actually defer to Uma Devi, who has been through family life and in devotional life. Maybe she could give better insights into that. If you don't mind, Didi, would you like to say anything? I don't want to put you on the spot.
After 25 years, brahmacharya ashram finish. After we have to come to Grihastha ashrama. Grihastha ashrama, even go to Krishna consciousness is okay. Otherwise, it's not, it's not good as family life without Krishna consciousness.
So the ideal though is if a man and woman were just starting out their family life, the idea would be that there's transparency, that it's moving in a it's like in our modern culture, people they have the ideal to stay married until they die, right? So that wouldn't be the case for people who are getting married in a Krishna conscious aspect. Instead of having that goal, they would have the understanding that we're staying together in this life and supporting each other up until an appropriate stage, and then when the next stage of life starts to unfold, we understand that at some point we may go in separate directions. That understanding is there from the beginning, I think. So, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So we will sign off for now, and we'll look forward to the next time we can meet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dhanyavad, Didi.